All right, in meat and carcass evaluation, let's look a little bit, it's not a very long chapter, but talk about pork quality and some of the attributes that pork has that brings to the quality table. So when we start to evaluate pork carcasses, the biggest thing we're talking about is an increased importance in industry, and also we look at it in competitions as quality. So what we're really focusing on is, with quality being a huge issue, you've got large plants, high numbers, all that can lead to stress. And we've talked about stress before in the muscle chemistry chapter, so you're obviously aware of what stress can do to pork, and now we actually get to see some of the quality attributes from that. Okay, so when you have stress in pigs and a live pig, it's going to cause PSE, and which is a really big thing. RSE, red, soft, and exudative, they're normal, but they're a little exudative. And then DFD pork, which are factors we don't want to see. So what does PSE stand for? It's pale, soft, and exudative. So the color of the muscle is pale, the lean is soft, and then the muscle itself lacks the ability to hold water. RSE, again, it's red, it's normal colored, but it is also pretty soft. It doesn't have good firmness to it, and again, it lacks the ability to hold moisture. On the flip side, DFD, which we would call a dark cutter in beef, and this is very low, that does happen in pork, but it causes a dark color and causes the muscle to be firm and very dry, and actually does hold its water. So it can actually cause millions of dollars of losses in the industry each year, just because of smokehouse yield and lack of or loss of the ability to export that pork. So here's some quality standards, and you'll see on the next slide it's even the bigger sets that is produced by the National Pork Board. So you can see what we're looking for is in the middle. So we've all talked about pH decline, right? And that was a big thing. So what we're seeing is, with normal pH decline, we get the pork that's in the middle, which is RFN, red, firm, and normal. When you get on the left, which is a low pH, you're going to get the PSE, and that's not even the best picture in the world. I've got some pictures in here of some really low quality pork. So if you have a high pH, you're going to end up with the DFD, which is dark, firm, and dry, like a dark cutter in beef. So again, we want it to be right in the middle. We don't want too much pH decline. We don't want too little. So these are the actual pork quality standards that are out there, and you see again the pictures of the PSE, the RFN, DFD. But also we have color standards, so you can see the 1s and 2s that are associated with PSE. Those are not eligible to be exported. Okay, they can also basically use a colorimeter, and they can actually get a color score. You can see what they are there for a 1 versus a 2. What we're looking for exports are the 3 and 4. That's what, especially like the Japanese one. So they want a Minolta's color score of 43 to 49, somewhere in there. Okay, and then we're starting to get into, and really the 5 and 6 don't do it justice in this case, but again, a bunch of lower score that is related to the DFD. But also, pork has marbling standards, and these numbers are based on a percent of marbling. So like this one would have 1% all the way up to what we might consider prime, and beef at 10%. And I wish the industry and even maybe the government side would bring in a pork grading system like choice and select and prime. I think it would be good for consumers, but it's not going to happen anytime soon from what I hear. So it's kind of a review, just make sure we understand, and we're looking at specifically pig stress on a live animal, they're going to build up glycogen or muscle sugar, okay? And in their body, that is normally converted into lactic acid, okay? The problem is, if you have an abnormal increase in lactic acid post-mortem, it's going to stay in that muscle, because we know that that muscle can't get rid of it in basically a carcass now. It has no way to transport it to the liver or the heart. So that's going to lower the pH past your normal conditions, and that lower pH changes the physiological characteristics in the muscle. So as that pH decreases, that muscle color will actually turn more to a palish white color. You're also going to become a lot softer. The muscle fibers basically don't hold tightly together, so you get this lack of firmness that happens with this pH decline. And so all that will also lend itself into the ability of that muscle to not hold or bind any water. So that's where you get the P, the S, and the E, pale, soft, and exudative. And the becomes really apparent in pork because we smoke a lot of it. So water holding capacity is very vital. And also we saw a lot of bacon. So if you have really pale bacon instead of actually having some red or pinkish color to it, it's detrimental. So PSE is really important when you look at 3 or 4 of the classes of pork that are out there that we're gonna talk about some evaluation of just some pork carcasses and some cuts just so you kind of see how it would affect things. So again, your dark, firm, and dry, they're going to have a very high pH. They have excellent water holding capacity. The negative thing for a DFD is consumers see dark and associate it with being spoiled. So they, it's tender, it's juicy, but that dark color they associate with being, expired, spoilage, low quality, whatever. So is it wrong? Yes, but it's kind of hard sometimes to change a consumer's mind. So here's just some examples of some PSE pork and what it really looks like and how pale it is, and some of them are worse than others. So you can see this first one here, extremely pale, very, very soft. And you can see on the table here is the amount of exudation. So as a pork chop, this will be terrible just because it's going to be really tough and dry. The second one over here was more about the paler color, and it is very soft, not as much exudation. This one you can see a red pork carcass. I mean, you can see the water that is being lost out of it. It's just running out of the side. And then this ham over here on the table, again, it's got enough exudation underneath it you can get a boat out. So again, very, very negative on the quality aspects. And these would all be pork that would be very horrible, if not poor, to consume as is. But then they also aren't allowed to be exported, and we export a lot of pork. And this one I got really close in, and you can see how soft, the pale soft and exudative. So yeah, we're losing the moisture out, which you can see I'm circling here, but now we're really looking at, I can see the difference in the grain of the muscle just because it's soft instead of being held together tightly. So if you look at these 4 pork loins, you can actually see some differences in quality. The best quality pork that has uniform color, it's got distribution of marbling, and is down here. The problem is it's not the leanest, but that's still good pork quality overall, and what we would call, I guess, number 1. Number 2 over here, it doesn't have, you can kind of see where it has exudated a little bit and it's soaked into the table, but the biggest thing with this is the color. It is extremely pale. Okay. So that one we would actually definitely call pale and soft. Again, not so much on the exudation side. And then we have pork quality down here that is average. The biggest issue that I see with it is the two-tone color. So we have different colors between this cap muscle on top and the longissimus dorsi or ribeye muscle below. And this is the rear of those loins. We talked about number 3 being the highest quality. It's definitely got great color. It's got good marbling, definitely the highest quality. The one that we call as pale and soft in the front is still pale and soft in the back, but it's not extensive. And then the other 2 are just kind of average. They could be better, but they could obviously be certainly worse. Now looking at these 4 hams you got here, they've got some differences in some quality attributes. We don't see any of the pale, soft, and that kind of stuff. We are seeing basically some two-toning color, which does happen because this muscle that I'm circling on all of them is the tenderloin muscle. It's basically the head of that tenderloin, so it is predominantly going to be dark, and that's what allows it to be tender. But what you're seeing is in the really fat ham is where we're going to get the most marbling, and then we've got some pretty dark color on this number 2 overall, but we got two-tone on this number 1 ham, and then we got the really heavy muscle trim ham down here. Again, it's not low quality, but definitely a pretty uniform color overall. This is just showing you the back view. Nothing really to do with quality. We're just going to show you the back view of these hams. And the same in this class. So that's a little bit of pork quality. You can continue and do some of the other chapters and anything to do in Canvas.